They're flying through a football Friday. Cincinnati, Eagles and Bengals. Phillies won each of its last 2 games behind a defense that hasn't allowed a touchdown in either game. Cincinnati also a 2-game win streak, creeping back toward 500 after an 0-3 start. Let's talk about Jalen Hurts. He threw 4 picks in his first 4 games this year. He hasn't thrown one in either of their last 2 games. His QBR also rising from 59.7 in his first 4 games to 71.9 in his last 2 games. This is Graziano's game this weekend. Before we dive into it, what does everybody need to know?
A little tougher test than the Browns and the Giants, who the Eagles played the last 2 weeks. But the Eagles felt like last week with Saquon Barkley, the players I've talked to already this week, they kind of established an offensive identity they might be able to count on. Like if we give Saquon any kind of hole, he's liable to run for 50 yards. And we saw him do it. I think he had 3 explosive runs out of that. So they've relied on explosive plays this year to an extent that they know they can't continue to. But they feel like if they can continue to open holes for Saquon, he will deliver for them and possibly in a big way. On the flip side, the Bengals' run defense beginning of this year was horrendous.
Yes.
Horrendous. They're a little stronger up front now because they've gotten some guys back at the defensive tackle position. Were really banged up on the defensive line earlier this year, so they feel like they've been playing better, and they obviously know the assignment, which is try and stop Saquon Barkley.
It's a fascinating game in so many different ways. RC, here's the way I want to look at it. I had Rex Ryan in here on Monday. You know how that goes. And he's yelling at me. This is the blueprint. Ride Saquon. It's got to be Saquon. Now you're going up against Joe Burrow. That feels like a shootout. Is Jalen Hurts ready to win a shootout with Joe Burrow?
I believe Jalen Hurts is ready to win a shootout with Joe Burrow because the problem with the Joe Burrow shootout is that they have Jamar Chase, is that they have T. Higgins. Well, now you have A.J. back. You also have Devontae Smith. You add that dynamic element with the Saquon Barkley in the backfield. I don't care what quarterback you are. If you don't have the people to help you win a shootout, if you don't have the requisite armory, you can't do it. Yeah. And the Philadelphia Eagles do. The other big piece of this is Jalen Hurts understands what's on the other side of this field. Jalen Hurts understands in order to get back to where they were 2 years ago, he has to win games against the elite quarterbacks in the league. He'll be up for the challenge.
Cindy, let's put the picks up. The Bengals are a 3-point home favorite in this game, and our picks are split right down the middle. Teddy, how about it? We talk so much. You're there with Rex with me on Sundays. We know what it is he wants to do. How do you think the Eagles have to go about trying to win this game?
Yeah, I just hope they don't get caught up in identity. I'd rather have offenses that are chameleons than an identity about this is who we are, this is what we do every single time. Because Saquon Barkley, sure, it's great to run the football like that, but if it's all Saquon, you won't win championships. Because Jalen Hurts, this game is going to have to participate. Believe me, last week he threw 14 passes. It's not going to be like that again. It's not going to be like that again. He is going to have to keep up at times when Joe Burrow goes off like he is. I agree with Ryan. Joe Burrow is great with those wide receivers. Yeah. And I'll say this about Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator. If there's anything, he does a great job of preventing explosive plays, all right? Yeah. They're number 1 in the league at preventing explosive plays. So if they can't get A.J. down the field, if they can't get Smitty down the field, is it more of intermediate passing? Can Jalen Hurts do that? Because this is going to have to be more than Saquon to beat a team, to beat an offense like the Bengals. I think there's a big question on if the Bengals can block, the pass rush of the Eagles, but still, let's see them in this shootout if the Eagles can keep up.
Two losses on offense the Eagles have to overcome. Jordan Mailata, their left tackle, not playing, and Dallas Goedert, tight end, very important player for them. He hasn't practiced this week either.
Much more on the NFL as we go, but as I mentioned, we are flying today.
Look out, safety.
Something made Darnold, his head go back. Yeah, he got that face mask. He sure did.
Yep.
And they cannot review that. I mean, anytime you see a guy's head get spun backwards, something happened. And he got away with one right there.
And Viking fans are going, what the hell?
They're not the only ones. Frankly, as Chris Canty jumps in here with us, as he does sometimes on Fridays from Unsportsmanlike on ESPN Radio, we weren't planning on starting here with you, but there's nowhere else to start. What is your reaction to the call that wasn't made last night?
What I can't understand, Greeny, is why that call is not reviewable, even though it's a scoring play. We know that the penalty, the infraction, led directly to points for the LA Rams, and that made it a 2-possession game and put it out of reach for the Minnesota Vikings. And so I get that penalties aren't typically reviewable, but in this instance, I think the NFL needs to revisit that, given that the penalty actually led to the LA Rams being able to seal that win.
Yeah, there are 3 reasons it should be reviewable. You just made the point that it's a scoring play. Graziano made the point that it's a safety issue. And I'll make the point that it was just so freaking obvious that all of us can see it, that there's no way, you just can't let that stand. In the world in which we live today, there has to be some mechanism by which someone can get in the ear of the official and say, hey, by the way, we blatantly missed a really easy one there. Just throw a flag. It happens sometimes, and RC brought it up after a little conference of the officials. Someone needs to be whispering in their ear.
There's no doubt about it, and that's what I thought replay assist was for, to be able to help out the officials that are on the field. You got 8 sets of eyeballs, and that's not a call that's subjective like holding or pass interference. That is a face mask, no question about it.
All right, let's meanwhile play America's favorite game show. It is sweeping the nation. It's called Can He or Can't He? All right, Chris, let's start with this. Can Drake May lead the Patriots to a win over the Jets? Can he or can't he?
Yeah, I'm going to say Drake May can get it done. I understand that there's a lot of controversy swirling in New England with Gerard Mayo calling his team soft, but not more than what's going on with Florham Park and the New York Jets and Devontae Adams giving speeches, trying to get the team right after only being there for 5 days. So I have more confidence in New England being able to get back on track than I do with the Jets.
Okay, that hurts. The next one, Jalen Hurts outplaying Joe Burrow on Sunday. Can he or can't he?
Yeah, I'm going to say he can. I mean, think about it. I think Jalen Hurts' degree of difficulty is a lot less given the defense that he's going up against. The Eagles' defense is top 10 in yards and points. And Jalen Hurts, even though he had 7 turnovers in the first 4 games, after the bye week, he hasn't turned the football over. I think that bodes well for the Philadelphia Eagles going on the road.
And then finally, Dak is going on the road. Dak and the Cowboys in San Francisco Sunday night. Can Dak lead his team to a win? Can he or can't he?
I'm going to say he can't. This is just a bad matchup for the Dallas Cowboys. Similar to what we said about the Detroit Lions in Week 6 for this outfit. They can't stop the Shanahan zone running scheme. Over their last 3 games, you're talking about the 49ers rushing the ball for 452 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's not good for a defense that's down Micah Parsons and Tate Lawrence, a defense that has allowed the most first downs per rush of any team in the NFL.
That's right. And now what we are finding out is the Cowboys not only have trouble with opposing offenses and defenses, but they also have trouble with spectators inside their own building. There was an ESPN article that went viral this week regarding fan tours that are given at Cowboys headquarters. Basically, you can walk through the facility and see the players doing things. Yesterday, they asked Dak and CeeDee Lamb if those are a distraction. They had very different answers.
I'm not going to let a couple of people touring the building distract me. I'm present where I am. I think, simply, honestly, I feel like it's an excuse. I mean, what's the difference in you guys coming in the locker room and talking? You know what I mean? Honestly, with guys about that too, and I don't get that.
Do you see the tours as a distraction?
Sometimes. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay, but it's not all we're going to say. Ryan Clark, what do you have to say about that?
The guys complaining about the tours at the Star are simply given a smoke screen for underachievement, because your environment is your environment. There are different things that happen at different facilities, but if this is where you practice, if this is where you prepare to play for games, then you have to understand how to adjust to those things. And the one thing that's not happening is they aren't bringing guys in tours and saying, hey guys, this is Lamar and this is Johanna, and they want to see what you're talking about when you're setting up to play the San Francisco 49ers run game. That doesn't happen.
Right.
There aren't tours. Grandma is not getting pushed in her walker while you're trying to do 7-on-7 on the 50-yard line.
That's right.
Those things don't happen. Now, if you have to talk to somebody, or if they're viewing you like a zoo animal and you don't like it, then you got to go to the owner and say, these things make me uncomfortable and inhibit me from doing my job at the highest level. And now, if Jerry Jones looks at you then and says, I don't care, I'm about making this money, now you know what I can say when I'm interviewed? He don't care about winning no championship, no way. That's not what it is. Dak answered this question like a man that just had a baby and just bought $1 million ring and proposed to his old lady.
Right.
Like a freaking adult.
Right. Yeah. Teddy, I see you nodding. You played for the buttoned-uppest of all buttoned-up organizations. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Ryan. I love the way Dak has handled this in terms of trying to be a leader and what all these distractions are if you're playing for the Cowboys in that building. But, I mean, having thought about this more, but you shouldn't have those distractions. You shouldn't have to deal with them. I mean, there are certain areas I remember I could go where there was no pressure. It was the weight room, it was the training room, and it was the cafeteria. Okay, and we actually had back ways to go to every one of those where we could avoid the media in the locker room. So you're under pressure all the time in meeting rooms, on the practice field, in the locker room. You know there are people in the locker room sometimes, the media's in the locker room sometimes. It just doesn't have to be a circus. And Dak shouldn't have to deal with the circus. I feel like the Cowboys players shouldn't have to deal with the circus because I can only imagine young players coming in trying to learn what it is to be a professional player, and then all of a sudden there's someone looking at you through the glass. I mean, my time with the trainers, my time with the weight room, I'm telling you, if someone came up to me while I was eating in the cafeteria, you're going to get bitter brew. I'm telling you, because that's my time. That's my time. That's with my boys. That's when we're watching TV. That's when we're talking and chopping it up. And it's like someone comes up to me and asks me for an autograph. It's going to be like, yeah, you better get out of here right now because I'm not having this right now.
That's something that people should understand. The Cowboys, I've tried to make this point in different ways over the years on this show. They don't operate like other organizations do. Like, they just don't. And if people want to go to ESPN.com, read that story by Kalen, a very good story, that's the point of it, is like, this is a different animal, the Dallas Cowboys, because Jerry Jones talked to her for the story and was very enthusiastic about the topic. And she asked him, has anybody complained to you about it in terms of the players, whatever? He said, no. He said, and it wouldn't make a difference if they did. So, like, that's how it's going to be. He is selling all the time, and this is a big part of what he feels like is his job as the owner of the Cowboys, is the fan interest and keeping that interest high. That is a fact of life if you're there.
When he wants their opinion, he'll give it to them.
Exactly.
That's kind of how Jerry Jones operates with that.
Let me ask the only question that matters, okay? Because at the end of the day, look, Teddy is saying, I wouldn't like it. I get it, you're not liking it. Does it have any impact on how they play, positively or negatively, in your opinion?
Well, it can only hurt, and I guess that's the point, right, G? If it doesn't have anything to do with winning, then why is it in the building? That's the part that I don't understand. And, RG, I get what you were saying about the zoo, but, I mean, think about it. The guys are in the weight room working out, and in the middle of the set, people are looking at them like guppies in a fishbowl.
Yeah.
That can't be good in terms of your team having the requisite level of focus and attention to detail that they need. And, oh, by the way, you're starting to hear current and former players come out and say, that's a problem for the Dallas Cowboys. We got it from Troy Aikman last week. We got it from Dak Prescott last week, talking about how they're not practicing the way that they need to, how they're not preparing the way that they need to, and that's leading to them underwhelming when they get on the football field. I can't help but think a part of it is the distraction. Now, I'm not saying it's all. I'm not going to absolve the players for what we've seen. The Cowboys have the third worst scoring differential of any team in the conference, so some of that has got to be on the guys on the field. But also, you have to consider the culture that's in the building, and those tours are a part of it.
They didn't start this year.
That's what I was going to say, Greg.
Take it away.
They ain't start that just now. Jerry Jones ain't just get like this. They've been like this. And last year, when we thought Dak was having an MVP caliber season, when headed into the playoffs, we expect them to dust the Green Bay Packers. We were like, this is great. We love everything that's happening here. They finally got it together. This is their opportunity to unseat the San Francisco 49ers. And they lost. And I know good and damn well that wasn't the first week that they had tours.
It was not.
But now it's a problem because they aren't playing well. But this is the atmosphere you're in. It's the same thing like when you're a kid, right? When you were a kid, you know the atmosphere of your house. And sometimes I would go to other people's house, and I used to be like, you can talk to your mama like that? 'Cause at my house, you couldn't talk to your mama like that. So him being able to have a conversation about why he didn't want to go to bed didn't make sense to me, because that was not the atmosphere in which I grew up in. But if you are in that building, you understand that's what Jerry's going to do, Chris. Exactly. So you can't can't allow that to affect your work.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I also go back to what Jake Lawrence said after they got smoked by the Green Bay Packers, where he was like, you know what? We were too burnt out to play well against the Green Bay Packers. We were too tired to put together our best effort. All I'm just saying is all of this nonsense, all of this noise around the team has an impact on the product that we're seeing on the field. Again, it's not all on the owner. It's not all on the head coach. But it doesn't certainly help the Dallas Cowboys get their season back on track.
It's just a fact of being there, right?
No,
I mean, like everything's different.
The owner creates the environment.
Let me get Tedy back in. Go ahead, Tedy. Go.
The owner creates the environment. Okay?
Right.
And so it does affect the way you play because how you play depends on your preparation. And yes, they've had success in the past, but when you struggle, when you have a losing streak, when you're 3-3, when you got to fix major problems, everybody is grinding in there with pressure, and it's a pressurized environment from everyone. And then I got to deal with little Johnny here having a hot dog next to me, and then it's like you just can't do that. It distracts you. It distracts you from getting it distracts you from getting back to ground one and getting back to the basics and grinding and preparing, and it makes it harder to do. An environment that's conducive to winning. That's what we all want. Is this environment conducive to winning?
If there's one thing that Jerry Jones understands better than anyone, it's that this is a show.
Yes.
Right? What we're dealing here is a show.
Environment conducive to making money.
He's producing a show.
But it ain't for winning championship.
That's right.
There you go, Gross.
And that's right.
Yeah.
And how much impact it has, it's impossible to say, but it definitely doesn't help. They're yelling at me that you need to go. Unsportsmanlike, coast to coast every weekday morning on ESPN.